How much do I need to know to recover? Well, you're certainly going to have to know a fair bit. I haven't met many robust recovery stories where the person knew very little about OCD. Don't tend to see that. I see sort of fluke recovery journeys where OCD's laying dormant and they've done a bit of work and it's laid dormant. Now for some, that may last many years, maybe a decade in some cases. But realistically, OCD is a robust bastard and it keeps coming at you. So you've got to really change the foundations in your beliefs to make a significant difference, a significant impact against OCD. Now, that's usually going to involve a fair bit of reading. That's usually going to involve consistently looking at your perspectives, looking at your irrational beliefs and making change. You may be a part of the journey where it's more subtle, but I don't even know why I'm scared. Navigating through that process of learning why you're scared and tweaking those beliefs just back into a baseline calm position once again. For example, many of my fears, I looked out into society and thought, oh my God, but then they're scared of that, Rob. If they're scared, that just must be fact. Well, no, it isn't. Society as a whole is generally not the sharpest when it comes to perspectives, life philosophy. Rarely are. Today, more insights because of YouTube, social media, helping create this environment of thinking about our thinking and thinking about our lives. I mean, we've come a long way since sort of drinking alcohol all day and every day and smoking all day every day because we've realized, hey, that's not the best idea. But if you actually look at society's beliefs, very, very black and white. If someone's done this, they're a rotten individual. Think about, for example, maybe with people who are gay. What percentage of the world thinks they're rotten, evil, and deserve to die? Still a large number of people think that. And it's the same with mental health. How many people think OCD and all of this is mental weakness? I sometimes look at comments on audio clips or videos I've done. Someone's put up a comment saying something like, oh, this bloke's just a victim mentality. OCD is nothing, you know? And it's like, yeah, you really don't get that. It's certainly not victim mentality, I can assure you. I'm definitely not a personality like that, far from it. And if you were to say to me, what would you think's a harder struggle? To go from a situation like perhaps being homeless, and then to getting to working your way up to being able to pay bills and have an apartment of your own. Being homeless is an incredibly hard challenge. I've seen people that are homeless going into working. It's like everything's against you, and it is a very hard challenge. However, I have not been homeless, so I can't say that from personal experience. But what I can say is that if you just looked at the odds of OCD and OCD recovery from severe OCD of people without help, it's fraught with difficulty, especially in my day. The odds were really stacked against me at like 99.99999% I wouldn't recover. Now, what are the odds of going from homeless into somewhere would be higher odds than that. So I'd much prefer that situation, even though I've not experienced it and can't say. And also, if you had said to me at the time, would you lose an arm for it? I would have chosen that. Quite significantly, I would have chosen that. If you had said to me, you've got to work out 3 times a day for the next 10 years, or you've got to go in jail and serve a 10-year sentence. All of those things I'd have probably been ticking the box on pretty hard things that you wouldn't necessarily want to do. We could just tweak those things and say working out in the cold every morning with very little sleep, and you can never get out of that situation. Any kind of torturous life struggle situation we could have suggested, I'd have signed up for every damn one of them. So that's the situation when it comes to OCD recovery. It's fraught against you. Now, we know that people would do even more extreme things than what I'm saying there. In other situations, I speak to people who've got terminal cancer. If I said to them, okay, you've got to go and serve 20 years in jail to recover from terminal cancer, quite a lot of them are signing up because they realise, hey, that means I'm still going to be able to talk to my family, means that when I get out. So when you actually really start to process these things, you can just start thinking like what you can do without. Now, I do that a lot in life. I think to myself, what could I do without, right, in life? What things would I really, would I give up and be okay with? That's a good rational exercise. And I've often thought, if you just had a mattress on the floor, you could eat some food and there's a roof over your head, where you can still read books, you can still go for a walk on the street and see nature. That ain't too bad, right? And then in your mind, you're quite mentally robust over a lot of life situations. Think about how many people sadly end their lives because they might lose a loved one or lose their job or whatever. Or these situations take people to the brink because they haven't developed that mental robustness of learning to see that even in those outcomes, they could be all right with things. And that's a great thing to think about in life. That's a really great thing to think about, is what you can do without. People often say to me, but Rob, aren't you scared of a really bad setback going back to square one? No. If I go back to how exactly I was, can I still eat? Have I got a roof over my head? Can I still get some sleep? Yes, yes, yes. Was it very hard? Yes. Did it feel like internal torture? Yes. Was I a very severe case? Yes, yes, yes. But at the end of the day, none of us get out alive from this life. And we are pretty robust when we actually put ourselves in positions. When people on YouTube say things like victim mentality stuff, they have no idea of OCD. You wouldn't wish OCD on your worst enemy. It can be brutal. And people don't see it, so they don't understand it. I'm very aware that there's lots of illnesses in the world that you can't see, and you can't see them, and so you think, oh, they're not necessarily that bad, yet they are some of the worst out there. Now, if you were saying to me right now, okay, OCD is so bad, you trade it for all these other things. Yeah, but I certainly wouldn't trade it for a lot of things, right? The flip side of that coin. I wouldn't want to be in the Holocaust and lose all my family and be tortured every day. No way. I would much rather have OCD than that. I wouldn't want to be in a fire and burn to death or be left in a hospital bed with terrible burns for years. I wouldn't want that. I'll take OCD over that. I've seen people come out of radiotherapy when they've had it so bad and they can barely even lie down. I was speaking to a guy the other day, he'd had radiotherapy all in his bum from where he had cancer, and he said he just couldn't even sit at all, and he could because it was just so painful. And like, you've just got to think of those things. I was reading a philosophical book talking about how much pain humans can experience. Like, you think of car crash victims, where I recently had like broken elbow a couple of years ago, and when I was going to sleep, I thought, God, this pain is pretty fucking strong, and trying to sleep through it is hard. And they gave me these drugs, painkillers for it, and I took them one night, and they really sort of zonked me out and felt really sort of weird nightmares and weird sleep. And the next day I thought, fuck it, I'm not going to take them again. And I just went through the pain, but that was because I could manage that pain, right? But you got to imagine broken arms, broken legs, broken jaws, broken eye socket, burns, broken back, and you're in a hospital bed where you can't even move left or right an inch. Yeah? You can't go to the bathroom, you can't have sex, you can't walk, you can't have any privacy. That is fucking terrible, really bad. Not terrible, that's awful, no awfuls from Albert Ellis there. But that would be very, very, very uncomfortable. Now, if you said to me, you've got to go through those processes for a long period of time, not walking again, loads of pains, loads of problems, just look at some of the diseases out there. I wouldn't want those over OCD, okay? So then you think of human lives, and we're talking about just the things that we're seeing, like what's it like being, for example, homeless in the UK compared to being homeless in a country where there is no support at all, and it's just like it could be instant death. Or what about places like a Siberian prison or something? You know, you can just think of more and more extreme situations, and it's good to do that, because when you do that, you then have gratitude for your situation. Most people are not grateful for the water in their bathroom, for the food in their kitchen. They're not thinking about that. But when you really think about it, just think about what population, there's war, famine. Can you imagine famine? What, no food? When's the longest you've gone without food, really? Really gone without food? And then think about that pain. Like, People I've spoken to that have had real hunger, because I speak to extreme cases in the world of things. People who say, like, just on your mind all day long, nothing else, right? That is your 100% goal there, nothing else, right? It's our perspectives influence everything. People don't realize how much. I speak to people who are suicidal, who genuinely want to end their life because they haven't had a girlfriend and they're young and they just want a girlfriend and they've started to think they're a loser, right? In their mind. I see people that want to end their life because they failed their exams, okay? I remember I had OCD about exams so bad that I had braces at the time. I got my braces and I pushed them into my mouth to cut my mouth, so my mouth was full of blood. And I stood up in the exam and I showed the teacher, I said, I need to go to the doctor. And then they let me out the exam because I was so scared of failing. Yeah, I just left an exam because of it, because I was trying to make an excuse. So that's what OCD it does. It takes a horrible feeling like being let down, feeling bad in some way, and jacks it up so high, right? And in reality, these things aren't scary. Like, humans come through. If you think of all the worst things you've had happen in your life today, you're in this group. Think of all the things in life that could happen. It's like when people go to the gym, they say, oh, so terrible, I can't do this exercise, it's too tiring. With a little break and then going again, little break, then going again. You could practically work out all day with just little breaks, no problem, more or less, right? Whenever I think to myself, when I hear people say, oh, I'm burnt out, or it's too difficult, I just can't got any energy, I always say to myself, like, imagine what somebody who's like working on in like a prisoner of war camp, right? They're in the blistering sun with no sun cream, completely burnt to pieces, working all day on something, all day and night, barely any food, beaten. And how many years do many of them survive? So long. So what we think is our threshold never is. Like, even when I work a very hard day, and I think I probably work a much harder day than most people tend to work in life, and I think, hold on, compared to that guy in the prisoner of war camp, that's a nothing, it's a holiday camp. And when you change that perspective, it gives you such a great insight into life. Now, I'm not saying to try and work yourself to death, and I'm not saying to diminish your problems and diminish the things that you're going through. I have complete compassion for the difficulty. Not for 1 second do I think being homeless is easy. I think it's very, very hard. Not for 1 second do I think that working out for someone who's just going to working out isn't hard. It is hard, right? You know, when you haven't worked out for a long time, your whole body's trembling. I used to get that because of anxiety as well. Whole body's trembling doing press-ups. Whole body's like, it's really aching the next day. Like, if you haven't trained your legs or something for a long time, then you go and do really heavy leg exercise, you feel like you can't walk the next day and you think you've like injured your legs or it hurts to just move, right? It's uncomfortable. It's not ideal, right? But when you actually realistically think of situations in a big picture, think of like what people go through and what they manage. Some things I don't think the human brain is designed to go through. Like having all of their family killed in a war is not something the brain's designed for. The brain is designed for connecting with other humans, having babies, having families, caring for each other, not mutilating all their loved ones instantly in 1 second. That is not a great experience for the brain, and hence why you have PTSD and all these kinds of things. However, in our lives, what we're usually doing is it's the anticipation of problems. As Hitchcock said, it's the fear before the bang than the bang, right? And I can't think of many cases where I've seen people that have said the thing was far worse than the fear before it in most cases. I'm not talking about cases of like torture and so on, but I'm talking about in cases of just the general things. Most operations, people say they were much more scared of it before it happened. There's other things where I haven't been that scared of it and then it was worse. Like I had an endoscopy when my whole esophagus was badly damaged with esophagitis. And when they put that tube down for the endoscopy, I threw up about 20 times as it went down. And you can't throw up fully because there's a pipe down your throat. So you're like kind of half throwing up, so you can never get that relaxation feeling after throwing up. You're straight into the next throwing up and over and over and over. And I thought at that time, God, I've come into this unprepared, like this isn't really nice. But even in that situation, it ends, you get over it, you heal, you improve, and it's a question of time, going through different things. And so, when you're talking to us about the struggles of OCD and anxiety, we've lived it. We know what that life's like. We know the hells of that life. There's no one on this team that hasn't been to the edge. I'm not saying that to be sensational. There is nobody on this team that hasn't been to the edge. And that is the reality of it. Everyone that I work with that works here in OCD recovery has, for years been in a hell-like situation, and then has spent years working with me in terms of working to get themselves recovered. So they know what those hurdles are like. They know what it feels like to feel like you're not improving, you're at square one. I can't think of anybody in the team who hasn't had incredibly hard journey. You've only got to listen to like Gemma's story, for example, when she's spoken in the WhatsApp group about her story, about how hard her life was young, being a mum from the age of like 16, being in really difficult life circumstances over and over and over again, and then coming through those. All of us know what it's like to be in that hell-like mental health situation. My OCD had pretty much most themes. I had some of them so bad, and I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing if it was a light road. Okay, I wouldn't be here if it was a light road. You've only got to see that Nick was only a couple of chances away from not being here, right? Just a couple of moves, he wouldn't have been here. You've got to think of Momin's situation. With no technology so that we could reach him and speak to him in Pakistan, probably stayed housebound his whole life, depressed, no improvement much, right? Sam, he was in housebound, wasn't working, suicidal, really bad situation. Can't see that improving much there, right? Look at the other guys on the Real Talks, the likes of Harley and those guys. When Harley came in, he told me, I said, what do you think your chance of recovery? He's like, nah, this is like, I've worked on this a lot. There's no way I'm getting better from this point. Like, it's too real. It's locked on. There was a guy like that on Twitter who approached me 5-6 years ago. I said to him, what's your life like? He said, I'm housebound, 5 years. Cocktail is 6 meds. I said, do you move much? He said, no, I just tweet and sit on the couch all day. I said, what's your chance of recovery? He said, chance of me recovering is like 1%. I said, what's the chance of you getting a job again? I can't see it much more than that. He said, I haven't worked in years, I just couldn't do it. I said, what about a girlfriend? He said, no way. He said, last girlfriend I had so much retroactive jealousy, I couldn't even have the relationship. It was just a disaster. I don't want to go anywhere near that. And I said, there's a good chance you can recover here. He's like, no. He said, I like everything you're tweeting. It resonates like nothing else that I've seen online. But he said, I just can't do that. I can't see that. There's no way. I'm on 6 meds. I'm on antipsychotics. I'm on high dose of sertraline. I'm on Xanax. I'm on sleeping tablets. I'm on painkillers. There's no way. I worked with that lad for about 7 months. In 7 months, he got a job. 7 months, 8 months, he had a relationship. Periods of no OCD and anxiety. 4 or 5 years later now, living a great life, right? He is being married, kids, good job, works all the time, healthy, fit. OCD doesn't bite him that much. Some niggles for sure, definitely some niggles in there. It's not like he's got no niggles, he has got some niggles, but from where he was, long way. That shows what the journey is like and overcoming hurdles and the things that come along. I've seen many horror stories that you would never think that people turn around. A girl came in to see Nick about 3 years ago now. She didn't even speak. I have lots that don't, not lots, but I have a few. And she didn't even speak. She came onto the call, she didn't talk, her mum spoke for her. She's fully recovered. She's young, 19, 20, fully recovered, didn't even speak. You think of those situations, right? I've seen quite a few like that. I've seen Nick turn round lives of people like that, where the laughing, the joking, the humour, the connection were the things that they needed because they were so stuck in their head. That's why we always encourage the humour. People sometimes say to me, we shouldn't we talk more about OCD in the WhatsApp groups? I say we do. If you look, we talk very, very thoroughly about OCD in depth. I said, but if I don't encourage humor in those groups, they're very hard to run those WhatsApp groups. We're running quite a few of them. There's thousands of people in those WhatsApp groups, in these WhatsApp groups. And if I do not encourage humor, people won't get better. And people will say, what? What do you mean by that? Well, I say, if you've got someone completely depressed who wants to end their life, and you get them laughing, you are creating a change in that moment in their mental state that's going to save their life. I see it all the time. In the WhatsApp groups, if people aren't joking, they get stale, they get boring. People think, oh, I'm just talking about OCD, it's so negative. If they see that they are meeting likewise people that are on the journey and they're having fun and they're not feeling alone for the first time ever, then they start to have hope. They start to feel like, this is actually a learning life experience, not just a chore that I have to do. And that cuts through things and creates massive, massive change. I can't highlight the importance of humor. Why do you think I have characters like Nick here? You know, doesn't shut up with jokes, right? Because it saves lives. It does, it saves lives. I can't tell you how much it does that. And when people have come in to see me, they've usually had about 7 or 8 therapists who've been stuck for years. On average, about 8 to 10 years. They're already feeling hopeless, but they've usually watched loads of the videos, loads of the articles. They're feeling more hopeful, but they're still stuck in OCD. When they suddenly meet other people going through the same as them, they think, fuck, I wasn't the only one thinking like this. Oh my God, it's just like me. Oh my God, I don't have to feel so bad. And they meet people that get it, that are going through the same as them, the same lives. Doesn't matter if you haven't got a job, doesn't matter if you had a job for 20 years, doesn't matter if you're CEO of a company. There is a shared connection through that struggle. And I always say to the team here, I say every day when I do the work that we do, to us, it's an enjoyment as well as a struggle, because working with OCD is a struggle, because we are always around people that are genuinely, most of the time, pretty positive about life, and people's judgments have gone out the windows because they have got that shared struggle. We have got that shared struggle, right? When I look at the team that works here, we've all been through that struggle. So there's a bond there because of that struggle too, which you don't see in other companies. There isn't that, right? With us, we each know where each of us were, right? I know what Phil's life was like when he came in to see me. You know, Dad died at 43 of early onset Alzheimer's. He used to come into the calls with me, I barely hear him. He would be sort of crying and speaking very softly. Sam crying the whole time, most of the time. It's not a competition of who cries the most, but I can tell you, in those situations, both of them were finding it very, very, very hard. So when I look at those journeys and I see all the different things to get us here, none of those were easy. Like, there are people that come in on these calls that are easy, where they come in, they're like, Rob, I haven't really got many problems. I just wanted to come in, just touch base, make a few tweaks. Generally mild OCD or much further along on the journey, right? Most of the time, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing people very stuck because OCD is kind of ruthless and doesn't give you much chance. So most people are in that position. Most people with chronic OCD in that position. But realistically, when people come in, you are feeling at a point where you think, it's so hard to get through the day. How am I ever going to come through this? Right? That's how it feels. That's how I felt. I only went for help when I literally thought, I can't get out of this anymore. This is winning. This has got the upper hand. Right? That's what it feels like. Okay? Every exposure that I did hard ones, they felt like anything but this. I just can't. It's too much. It feels like 110% difficulty every time. Okay? I used to read Ellis books and I used to think, oh my God, this book is so long and so many points. His points, he's talking about falling out with a friend in a relationship. I don't give a fuck about that. I care about my particular fear, my particular thing. That's what I was thinking, right, in my head. I was thinking my particular thing. If he's not talking about that particular thing, why am I even bother reading this dumb book? Yeah, that's what I thought at the time, right? And then I would carry on reading, and then he would say, I spoke to a girl and she'd broken up with her boyfriend and she was depressed and she was upset, and so I taught her this, and I thought, gives a shit about breaking up with a boyfriend. My situation was going to prison 25 years. That's what it feels like with the anxiety of OCD disorder. And I thought, no, do you know what? You're going to have to calm yourself down a bit, and you're going to have to go through these things consistently, because when you go through this, you're going to learn those steps. It's like the book says, how to stubbornly refuse to make yourself miserable about anything, not just breaking up with your boyfriend. That's also what leads to people not getting compassion when they're suffering from RSD. RSD can take people to the edge. I see people suicidal all the time with RSD. It's just because of how it makes it feel life and death in the brain. And it's the anxiety response linked in there. So I think it's really important to just take a second and realise the struggle of the journey. When people come into me, I realise that I've got one call to, one, make sure I resonate with them on some level that's going to change their life. Not change their life in the first session, because it's not going to work like that. It takes practice. But I've got to resonate on a level with them that's deep enough to their personal situation that they think, do you know what? There is some hope. Because someone might be coming into me that's had 10 therapists, doesn't even believe in getting better, doesn't even think they can get better, and they've given it one shot and one call. So on that call, I'm thinking to myself, anybody that I speak to, I'm thinking to myself, this person has given their one shot to go for it to me. They've said, I am trusting you to be the person to really help me at this pivotal point in my life. And I respect that, because I'm thinking that situation, I've got to be on my A game, because if they just don't get the best help, they're going to maybe drift off and think recovery is never even possible and never ever work at it again. So each person that comes in, I'm significantly taking a step and saying, hold on, you've got to remember that this person, even if they're yelling at me, because people with OCD often do, even if they're shouting, even if they say they disagree over and over and over, I know that they're on that call because they think there's going to be a position for them to get to hope. And if they do the work, they can, but they feel lost now, right? And in that, what I'm trying to do is lay foundations of knowledge for them so they can work out themselves. I have to do this, I have to do that, and they get a bit of confidence. Then I can assist. Because if people can't see that recovery is even possible, how much hope they got? How much hope would I have if I had that usual crap that you hear, which is, oh yeah, you just got to learn to live with it, roll with the punches, and like you never get better. People feel hope. People die because of that crap that you often see online about just learning to live with it and suck it up. Forums are full of that negativity. That's what I used to hate about forums. That's why when we made these WhatsApp groups, I said the way that they have to be built, they've got to be funny, they've got to be optimistic, and they've got to be fucking real. Because if people aren't real in there, and it's all that stuff of like trying to be so professional and so particular, then people feel cut off, right? When I used to often go to therapy sessions, I used to go, and I'd sometimes pay a lot of money for top therapists that I'd go and see. I'd go in, I'd sit in a leather armchair in a room full of books, and they'd come in sitting in a cardigan and sit there looking at me like I was a test subject. Not because they were deliberately trying to make me feel like that, but that's how it felt. And then they say, yes, and this particular problem with your OCD, I can see you're making a mistake there and you're doing this. And I just thought like I was broken, I wasn't very smart, I wasn't going to get out of this situation, and that like I was a rare, weird case. And then I'd go back to the forums and I'd see the same negativity repeated over and over and over and over and over and over. And I would think to myself, my God, there's so little hope. When I made OCD recovery, I wanted it to be real, connection, fun, and loads of real hands-on knowledge, covering everything, covering every problem, having these 24-hour groups so that if someone's thinking, shit, I'm going to go to A&E right now, I'm having a panic attack, someone else says in the group, hey, you're having a panic attack, I went to A&E a lot of times, have you tried sitting with the anxiety today and seeing how you feel, and then weighing it up and say, maybe okay. Obviously, it's the person has to make a choice with going for accident emergency. Obviously, if it's a very serious thing, they have to make that serious choice. But I'm saying in the general sense, when we're having a panic attack at home and we think, oh my God, we're dying, you have a support in there that helps you to understand the process that you're going through, so you can then weigh these things up. Also, the group is there so that when someone is feeling completely hopeless with POCD, they're learning to see that other people have gone through the same thing, come out the other side. And all the things they're learning in the coaching, they're learning how to break those fears down, change, work on those things, which also can be counterproductive if the person is doing this. Oh my God, why has someone else in the group's got loads of exposures and I haven't? Everyone's journey is different and we tailor it for the different individual.